Hi, welcome to Box on the Box Rock and Celluloid, Bok for short. I'm over Box, so the early bird sort of catching the worm here. This is my review of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So I literally just got back from the cinema. I went to the first screening I could get to after work with my wife. We weren't looking forward to this because we'd sort of read or heard bad things. My advice to people is avoid reading reviews. Make up your own mind. There's things, I didn't read many reviews, but they always give too much shit away. I should say that. So what did I make of this? I won't say relax, but it's not as bad as people are making out, or you might have heard. I've read a few 2-star reviews. There's a few kind of snobby reviews from Cannes. I'd say I'd give it a 6 out of 10. There's quite a lot of problems with it, but there's quite a lot of things that look good. And there's a lot to enjoy. It is better than the Crystal Skull. I actually watched Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in a couple of sittings. I couldn't take it in one. I hadn't actually watched it since it came out. The problem with that film was some ropey CGI, aliens obviously, but Harrison Ford also kind of deciphering what John Hurt's character is saying is completely wasted, and regaling it, feeding it back to the audience. That film starts off good. The first half I think's a lot of fun. There's the bit with the A-bomb test, the fridge. I know people don't like the fridge, but I thought it was good fun. Sheila Buff turns up, everything's fine. You've got them looking like Marlon Brando's the motorbike bit. It's canny. And then once it kind of gets on to the journey, it just kind of doesn't fall apart. It's not the word, but it's just not very, very good. And when I watched it again, originally I was always a 4 or 5 out of 10, and my opinion hasn't changed. I think I gave it a 4.5. So this is better. It is pretty long, but it didn't feel too long in some ways. So what I'm going to do is, basically the film, the technical aspects of it are good. There is quite a bit of CGI. Most of it's good. Harrison Ford is Harrison Ford. He's in Indiana Jones. He's great. Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I'll come to that more in my spoiler review. John Williams' score is solid. It uses sort of classic indie themes. One criticism I had of cinematography for me was a little kind of washed out, a little kind of pale. I like my indie films to kind of have that golden hue. I think that's sort of the classic Indiana Jones look. But it ticks quite a lot of boxes, but this is no way near the quality of the first 3 films. And I think one of the things with Indiana Jones was people sort of go, oh, it's a classic trilogy and that. And in actual fact, I would, differ with people on that. The original Star Wars trilogy, you've got 2 classic films, and then the Return of the Jedi's got its problems, but it ties up the story really well. And that's why it's a really good trilogy. Terminator, the first 3 films, first 2 are classics, third one, it's actually better than people probably give it credit for. But it's not as good, but it's not a bad trilogy. I'd say Toy Story is probably an example of 3 films where you have the 3 films are kind of almost an equal level. Obviously, why they did the 4th one, I don't know, it's alright. But those first 3 Toy Story films are an amazing trilogy. Lord of the Rings, I mean, I'm not as into that, but it was a really good trilogy. What I think with the Indiana Jones, I think Raiders of the Lost Ark is one of the greatest films ever made. I think it's the greatest action adventure film ever made. And this is coming from a James Bond fan. The only thing I think comes close maybe is like Terminator 2, a lot of sci-fi in terms of action spectacle. Raiders of the Lost Ark is one of those films where you can almost play it back in your mind. It's just full of, like when he catches the poisoned... is it nut or whatever that's poisoned the monkey? Just little bits like that. The bit with the bit where he shoots the guy, the bit where he uses the sunlight to create the ray, to find out where the ark's buried. The truck chase, which for me is probably the greatest action sequence, pure physical action sequence with real stunts in all cinema. Harrison Ford's amazing, Karen Allen's amazing, the villains are amazing. It's a 10 out of 10, and it's less than 2 hours long. It's Spielberg and Lucas at their absolute zenith, 2 geniuses of cinema. Temple of Doom film for me had great action. It's a lot of fun, but it's got Kate Capshaw screening all the way through. I went to see the pictures, and people forget actually was controversial at the time, Temple of Doom, because the bit where it rips the heart out, and yeah, maybe some of the racial stereotyping or that kind of aspect of it. I remember my mate's mum walked out of it, and I went to see it again with him, and she was like, "Oh, I'm not seeing that again." But last time I watched Temple of Doom, I was finding a lot of things grating about that. But it is, on a bad day, it's a 6 out of 10. On a good day, it's probably an 8. I'd probably get a 6 or 7. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, again, saw the pictures, loved it. Amazing interplay with Sean Connery. When you watch that again, it's kind of replaying some of the Nazi elements of Raiders of the Lost Ark. The villain's not that great. What elevates it is the interplay between Harrison Ford and Sean Connery. So for me, those films were never more than 8 out of 10. I don't think anyone could give more than that. For me, maybe 7 out of 10. I think what I'm trying to say is, something like Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back are like 10 out of 10 films, and Jedi's like 7 or 8. As a trilogy, the Indiana Jones trilogy is really good, but there's only one classic, and that is Raiders of the Lost Ark. So I think we sometimes have elevated expectations of Indiana Jones. So when we went to see Crystal Skull, we're like, fucking hell, this is shit, but in a sense, like, it only needs to go a few notches down from the sequels to end up where it was with that. This goes back up a bit. I think James Mangold brings a bit more vigour to proceedings than Steven Spielberg did. I think Steven Spielberg on the last film was just doing it because George Lucas wanted to do it. He just kind of went along with it, and he had to, the Crystal Skulls thing at the end was quite cool. But then when they all merged and it turned into a proper alien, and then there's this flying saucer, it just, it jumped the shark, as they say. So, I mean, that's kind of my way of kind of contextualising the other Indiana Jones films against this. Obviously, I'm not going to say too much about this film because I don't want to do a spoiler. I'm going to do that in a bit. But I would say it's pretty canny. The cast mostly good, apart from 2 characters, which I'll go into in the spoilers. There's a lot of elements with Harrison Ford that bring a lot of joy. There's things that could have done better. I love Harrison Ford, and I still love him. I loved him in this. So I think you'll go to this, if you go to the cinema, and just maybe keep your expectations low, but you probably are going to find it a bit better than you might have thought. But don't expect Raiders of the Lost Ark, don't expect Temple of Doom or Last Crusade. But it is better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I think one of the things that's been quite annoying about this is there's been a lot of kind of clickbait things predicting that it'll be terrible, criticising this, criticising that to get views without actually having seen the film. And then I think people feel they have to be negative about it in some respects. And there is negative aspects about it, which I'll cover soon. But anyway, I think if you go with the right frame of mind, enjoy Harrison Ford, enjoy the things that are enjoyable about it, the other things, you'll it depends how much you let them annoy you. Okay, so 8-minute mark. That's just my kind of recap of Indiana Jones. I'm going to do a spoiler review now. So if you've not seen the film, obviously switch off now, because I will discuss plot points and things like that. Okay, so the spoiler is coming at 8 minutes 20. Spoiler starting now. So spoiler review. Okay, so the opening sequence had that classic typeface. Didn't have the credits, just went straight in. The main thing for me was like Bamborough Castle. Obviously, people who know where I'm from, in the Newcastle Gateshead area, Bamborough Castle's about an hour's drive away. So it's a cool location. It was good to see that. It's also used in Michael Fassbender's Hamlet. I think it might be used in Polanski's Macbeth as well. Very popular film location. Anyway, this sequence is quite... The main thing is the de-aging. My wife loved the de-aging. She said, woof, it brought Hazard back to his young self. My thing, I was finding it a bit sort of jarring. It's like, it's that thing where it's probably the best de-aging there's been up to now, but they've still not got it right. In long shot and in sort of medium-y long shot with dark lighting, it's fine, but in the close-up it doesn't work for me. But I did enjoy the pre-credit sequence. It was CGI heavy. It's one of the disappointing things with what's happened with the Indiana Jones films in general is the lack of physical real action. But it's a mostly exciting sequence. you know, I probably maybe kind of preferred the Crystal Skull opening, and that, because I do think that film opened pretty good. But it is fun. It's great to have him back with the Nazis. The weird thing is it has us talking in his gruff voice. They haven't tried to de-age his voice, which I think was a mistake. But what I noticed was, you know, James Mangold. I do think Mangold's a very good filmmaker. Ford versus Ferrari, Le Mans '66, obviously. What's the Western? 310 to Yuma and Logan are all very, very good films. Now, he's not an auteur, he's not the level of Spielberg, but he's a very competent director, technician, and he knows how to pace things. And his oeuvre is quite interesting. Copland's good, Heavy was an okay little indie film. Identity, quite a strange psychological thriller with John Cusack. You know, Night and Day. You know, he's got quite a broad spectrum, but I do think more recently he has kind of found an extra level. So yeah, I felt Mangold, you know, John Williams' score was kind of kicking in. The first time I heard the Indiana Jones theme, it just felt a little hollow to me. I felt like, because of the CGI, it didn't feel Indiana Jonesy enough, and I'll come to like what I think they could have done better with that. So cut to present day. I quite liked it when Indiana Jones was, Dr. Jones was doing his lecture, because it was like an inversion of when in Raiders of the Lost Ark, he's young and he's hot and the girl's got to love you, which is a great moment, and then the kids aren't interested, well, the young people aren't interested. So I quite like that. It was quite sad to see him sort of holding a bit down, but this happens. I think some people will find that difficult, but, you know, getting old's hard, and so I didn't mind that. And then the Phoebe Waller-Bridge character turned up, and I liked her initial character. You know, she was there to kind of drive the plot, Indy up into doing stuff. But then this is where things started to go wrong with the characters. A couple of brutal deaths where a couple of his workmates got killed. And then she's like, you know, mercenary, and then she's kind of using Indy. And at no point throughout the film is that ever really kind of, she doesn't see her arse. It's by the end of the film, you know, she actually does something good again. You know, getting Indy back to where he belongs and so on. But I just felt this is Kathleen Kennedy through and through. You know, having strong female characters, having the focus female characters is fine, but don't make them fucking arseholes. You know, my wife is an Indiana Jones fan. She doesn't want to see Indiana Jones emasculated, which is what happens at some points in the film where she's kind of, you know, driving the plot. She's coming up being all the smart arse. You know, it's a fucking Indiana Jones film. Jumping ahead to the climax of the film where she's on the motorbike, riding through the rain to get on the plane. That's where they just kind of missed a trick. That was the perfect moment into the film to hold off from using the Indiana Jones film, like they did in Casino Royale for the Bond bit at the end. She gets captured on a plane, has her riding on his bike. The Indiana Jones thing kicks in, and we're like, Indy's back, he gets his mojo back. You kind of have that narrative arc through the film, but they didn't do that. Boyd Holbrook, villains. Boyd Holbrook was okay. You know, he's just doing what he did in Logan, really. I thought Mads Mikkelsen was good. No, not the level of Paul Freeman or Ronald Lacey, but he was good. I think Mads Mikkelsen is that film where he underplays things, but he's doing a bit of a Schiffer. I liked it. So that was good. Yeah, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, I just found the character annoying. Like I say, it started off okay, it was okay at the end, but it was a shit sandwich. And, you know, it's just, why do the people at Disney, people like Kathleen Kennedy, think we want characters like that? My wife pointed out she thinks she's a bit of a one-trick pony. When she was eyeing up ogling blokes in the film, which I didn't think was totally proper. That's an Indiana Jones film. It's very just like Fleabag. And I think really maybe they could have had an actress with more big screen experience. I really liked Phoebe Waller-Bridge in Fleabag. I think Fleabag's a great show. I also thought the first series that she was the showrunner for Killing Eve was superb. So, you know, people knock her a lot. But it had that same thing as the James Bond film, No Time to Die, where the female 007 agent, you know, they just pulled it in at the right moment and said, yeah, Bond's 007. We do not want to see our classic characters emasculated. We want strong female characters. We want good female characters. But female characters have got to have flaws. They've got to, you know, there's got to be balance there. You know, Indy's character throughout the film sort of pointed out things like, look, one of my mates has just been murdered, the Antonio Banderas character. He was wasted, really. and then there's the two office workers, and there's no sort of pretty well the British character. Oh, sorry, and it's like, this hasn't been thought out. The young Moroccan lad, the sidekick, wasn't very good. They seem to be sort of trying to do the like the young lad from Temple of Doom. I always found him annoying anyway. Yeah, and then obviously he's kind of pretending to do the pilot controls, the classic Hitchcock thing, never have a loaded gun in the first act that you can have in the third. So there's that element of things, but a nice little cameo from John Rhys Davies. Obviously, the very end, Marion Karen Allen turns up, and I thought it was really. I've actually kind of made the film that it kind of elevated the film a bit at the end, and it really needed that. I was kind of just that very end sequence in his apartment. I was quite moved actually. So yeah, I kind of felt through the film. The project of the film should have been more Indy's, down in the dumps. His son's died. He goes on an adventure. He's not himself, but slowly through the film becomes more Indy, and that's part of the enjoyment for us. It's like when he turned up in Morocco. He's got all his Indy gear on, and maybe it would have been more interesting, to have the pants and the shoes, but maybe not a jacket, maybe not a hat, and then later on, he gets his jacket on. And then he puts the hat on or something like that. Because it felt like when he went into, the Morocco sequences, that, although he's kind of indie-ish, she's doing all the kind of indie things, working stuff out. So, yeah. I thought the chase sequence was really good. I thought it was really well done. My wife thought it was a bit too long, which I'd maybe agree with. But I felt like it was a good mix of CGI and real stunts. I thought it had a lot of vigour. It certainly was a lot better than the chase sequence in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which looked all CGI. And it felt like Spielberg just couldn't be arsed. Whereas it felt Mangold seized the moment to go show what he could do. I don't think I missed Steven Spielberg's direction on this. But Steven Spielberg, he's great direction of this type of film. Obviously was the original, and those first few films up to E.T. for me anyway, and then he kind of changed. He went through a transition. So I like the MacGuffin. I thought the Dial of Destiny thing was actually pretty cool. MacGuffin, much around the Crystal Skull thing. It's got a better villain than Last Crusade. The Archimedes thing is quite a clever plot point. It potentially could have been daft, but I thought it was pretty cool when Hazard sushes out. He's fucked up. I had to look up what continental drift was. I thought it was to do with the sort of magnetic force of the Earth, but yeah, I don't know. I guess that possibly would change stuff. But the idea that Archimedes had just kind of set it back to go there to check it would work. So that was good, that sort of temporal loop thing. But of course, Indy couldn't stay there because it would change history. So that was pretty good. When they had the plane, it's just that that's why there's propellers on the thing. So that was good fun. I thought the film's paced pretty good. I mean, it's 2.5 hours long. It is too long for an Indiana Jones film, but it's pretty good. So yeah, I'm not disappointed. It's not better than I was expecting. It's kind of gone to the right side, I think, of where this was going to go. When we all saw the trailer, I think we were hoping it's great. We're going to get the Indiana Jones film we've craved, but it's not that. I think one of the things is with nostalgia I think nostalgia in films has to stop. The problem is a money spinner. But if you look at the destruction of Star Wars, it started with the original prequel trilogy, which kind of now, especially the last one, kind of now look really good compared to what they did with the recent ones, and the TV shows, the way they've gone. It happened with Lord of the Rings. There was nostalgia. Oh, let's make The Hobbit into the trilogy. I watched the first one off. I'm not watching the rest. Life's too short, and The Matrix, it's happened with that. You have to leave things alone. But Hollywood won't do that because there's money to be made. But if we left things alone and tried to come up with new characters and new things, then we'd make new memories, new cinematic memories. But when you go and watch films like this, you're just getting a nostalgia of little sequences and just remembering the moment first moment you saw it. When I first saw Raiders of the Lost Ark, I went to the Palladium Cinema, which was the cinema in Kendal. It's gone now. It was a 2-screen affair. That's pretty much where I saw all the films as a child, and one called The Royalty in Bowness, and also Zeffirelli's once at Ambleside, which people might have heard of. But I actually went with a lad who was lived up the road from me, but he'd moved away, but he'd come back for the a bit of a holiday to see friends. So I went with him to Raiders of the Lost Ark, and he took his little brother, and we loved the film. And all I remember is at the end, his brother was quite upset because he wanted to get an ice cream, and they weren't selling ice creams or something, so his little brother was a bit teary, which was all I always found really sweet. So yeah, it was a great moment, but like, the great thing that happened is that I saw Raiders of the Lost Ark then, and I've always got that memory, and we can never get those things back. We can watch those films again, but the main thing is you're there and it happened. I feel very lucky to have grown up in the period of culture that I have, both from music and film. I think, I've done, and my generation has done pretty well there. We've had some really cracking experiences when we were younger, and great points in films going all the way through the 90s as well. I'm not sure how, things like Marvel and things like that, how that'll fare in the future. There's certainly there's no Marvel film that's the standard of Raiders of the Lost Ark or Jaws. I'm sorry, they're not. There might be big entertainments, people might love them, some of the Harry Potters, but they're nothing, I don't think they've got the craft. But that's just me. Now, I've waffled on for 13 minutes with my spoilers there. But anyway, that was my take. I'm not disappointed because it was kind of a little better than I was expecting, and basically it treats, it didn't kill off Indy. It basically treats the Indiana Jones character mostly well, but it shouldn't have tried to emasculate him with the Phoebe Waller-Bridge character. Maybe for a bit, but anyway. Okay, remember to share and subscribe. I'll see you again. Thanks very much.